Oh, 9 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in day 4 of SEC Media Days. Tyler Head live once again on Digital Drive here at the College Football Hall of Fame, getting you set to wrap up what's been a very, very fun, very, very busy week. Jack, I will tell you, it's a little more scarce around here. Some of these tables have cleared out from the people that were here earlier on this week, getting a jump on heading back home. And yeah, my bandwidth, my internet's actually working a lot faster today, I guess, because of that.
Staying 3 days, but not staying the full 4 days. Wow, what a shame. 107.5 the game gets it though. They stay
listen,
all 4 days.
we lock in and we don't leave until the final bell sounds. So yeah, we got one more day to go here. I think a lot of stations that I've seen and stuff that have come in for the day, like their respective team is here, and listening to them getting interviews and all that kind of stuff, and then they cut out. But we are determined to bring you all the coverage across this great conference that is the SEC. So we don't leave until the party is truly over.
Until the last Dr. Pepper has been consumed.
That's right. I have drank so much Dr. Pepper this week, probably bordering on unhealthy, but you know what? We do what we do, and it just means more around here.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it just means more here at 107.5. So, but yeah, man, that's good. I'm glad to hear that media days are going well out there. I am certainly glad I'm not in Atlanta anymore, but I'm glad to be here back at home.
You know, the funny thing is, and again, I've lived in Georgia pretty much my entire life. I've dealt with some of the worst traffic you could have ever imagined coming in and out of Atlanta for various things. I worked in the city for a while, going back and forth in rush hour traffic, but knock on wood, this entire week, I've not spent more than an hour going one way or the other. And Jack, you stayed at my folks' house on Sunday night and drove in Monday morning. Like, it's a pretty decent little drive, about 30 miles or so. And again, I've never spent more than really like 50 minutes in commute this week, which by Atlanta standards is pretty darn good.
That is pretty good. I mean, the traffic really, I don't think it's as bad as people say it is, but maybe I'm just missing a day in which that will be the case, but I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So been a fun week. Again, we got plenty of things to get to from the coaches that spoke yesterday. Also going to hear from the last batch of coaches coming up today as we wrap things up out here in Atlanta. Before we dive into all of that, though, we do have to start things off, as always, with our 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick Me Up. It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick Me Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. Last night, Jack, was the quietest night of the entire sports year. The one night where you really don't have any professional sports going on, and that's when the night when they choose to have the ESPY Awards out in Los Angeles. You get into any of that at all? ESPY's on your radar at all?
A little. I saw the clips of Shane Gillis, the host, and him throwing a lot of really funny jokes out there. And I know some people don't have that type of sense of humor, but I thought it was very funny. And yeah, I mean, he really didn't pull any cards back. And safe to say, I don't think ESPN will ever invite him back for another ESPYs.
But you say that like he's been on College Game Day. He's been doing a lot of things that I feel like comedians with his type of content haven't been doing these past handful of years. And look, I'm somebody that grew up, on the comedies of the mid 2000s, movies like Superbad, Knocked Up, those kind of things. And like, that is my era of comedy that unfortunately in like the 2010s and in the 2020s has died away. And we've become more sensitive to a lot of things for a lot of various reasons. But like Shane Gillis has kind of reintroduced that comedy to, I think, a lot of people. And I'm glad to see it being represented on a larger platform. So maybe we're kind of entering a comedy renaissance, and Shane Gillis is leading the way there.
Hopefully. I would love to see that be the case. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really watch too much of it last night. One of those nights where there's no sports on, just chilling, not really doing much, and not having much sports on. But I did see Lee Corso got honored.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That
cool.
looked awesome. They had the Southern Cal band out there playing the game day song, and they had people back there with his big head on, which I thought was really neat. And it really kind of reminded me that, man, we are 44 days away from the final Lee Corso College Game Day, and I don't think any of us are emotionally ready for that 3-hour roller coaster.
No, it's gonna be a tough one, honestly, to watch. But yeah, I'm glad we'll all be able to get to watch it, just because South Carolina does not play that day, so no need to worry about getting ready for a game or anything. But yeah, that'll be good.
That is something cool about, and we talked to Gary Stoken of the Peach Bowl yesterday, and Carolina and the Hokies going to kick off on that Sunday. That is something neat about the way they schedule this year. By the way, the first ever Sunday game they've done for the now Aflac kickoff, formerly the Chick-fil-A kickoff, is that we get to actually take in all of that first Saturday of college football, unabated, because again, when we're covering South Carolina, whether it be home or away, we're either at the venue or being carried to the pregame show or set up somewhere. So there's a lot of the college football Saturday that unfortunately we miss by doing our various jobs, when it comes to covering South Carolina. So we'll need to be able to take all that in and get juiced and ready to go for that game kicking off Sunday at 3.
Yeah, I'm safe to say I'm really looking forward to just diving into a full weekend of college football and not working until Sunday.
Sure.
I mean, that'll be honestly kind of cool and refreshing, and won't always be like that, unfortunately. But Saturdays are meant for college football anyway.
Absolutely, and driving in every single day, I continue, and I've been around it plenty of times, been in it obviously. I continue to marvel at the size of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and football stadiums in general are obviously the biggest sports entertainment complexes there are. But the way they have it designed with all the I don't know, it's almost like art on the outside with the way they have the angles of the walls and all that kind of stuff, and the giant Mercedes-Benz logo. Like, it's just a mammoth of a structure that if you knew nothing about American sports or American football, you wouldn't have any idea what you were looking at when you looked at that stadium down the street.
It's huge. I mean, it is massive. And I remember going to visit it, or being in Atlanta like 4 or 5 years ago, and remember just going up to it. And it's huge. It's something that is just a real spectacle. And I mean, I never went to the Georgia Dome or anything, and this was my first time going to this stadium, but I can imagine this is a much better thing to look at compared to the Georgia Dome.
Listen, Georgia Dome is something that I hold very near and dear to my heart. I grew up going to Falcons games and monster truck shows and all kinds of things at the Georgia Dome, and I will contest that it was the perfect sports venue no matter what you were taking in there. I'm sad that it is no longer here anymore, that it's now the Home Depot backyard for tailgating for Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But Mercedes-Benz Stadium is cool, a lot of bells and whistles, and it's just it won't replace the Georgia Dome, unfortunately, in my heart.
Yeah, no, most definitely. But anyway, so what were your, you want to get into a little bit of yesterday? What you were there? I mean, what are some of your takeaways?
Yeah, obviously yesterday, we talk about day 2 on Tuesday, where none of these schools that were here are schools that are on South Carolina's schedule, which again is still weird to say about teams like Georgia and Tennessee. But yesterday, obviously, the interest was very, very high, particularly when it comes to Alabama and in Oklahoma. And those are two programs that are obviously kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum in the SEC right now, given how last season went. Though I think both coaches are under a ton of pressure to obviously perform way better than they did a season ago. Obviously, Brent Venables kind of fighting for his life right now at Oklahoma, and Kalen DeBoer obviously missing a 12-team playoff. Certainly not the standard of of Alabama. And I'm thinking about it, when I kind of look at the home games, at least in the SEC, because I know Clemson's obviously going to jump to the top of this list no matter what. I really think Alabama and Oklahoma are the two biggest home games that South Carolina has this year.
I would argue that you're totally right. And coincidentally, they're back-to-back weeks during October. So, and I honestly think like October, that's going to be the month that determines which way the season's probably going for South Carolina, because realistically, we should be seeing this team be 4-1 or 5-0 by the end of September. And then you go into the bye week and you get LSU, you go on the road there, and then you have the 2 home games against Oklahoma and Alabama. And ideally, you'd like to go 2-1, I think, in that month stretch. I think it's very hard to go 3-0. It's tough to win at LSU, number one, but you always feel good about your chances at home. And so I expect Oklahoma to be much improved this year. I think they're going to be very high on a lot of people's, preseason polls and stuff. I think they'll be a little bit better this year.
Sure.
But then Alabama obviously is Alabama, and I definitely expect them to be in the playoff this year and a much more, contending for a national championship.
We talk about that middle block, and I know the Ole Miss game is technically in November 1st, but I'll count it in the month of October. We talk about that month of October, and that's where the entire season is going to be decided. And look, I don't think anybody's going to go undefeated in the SEC, and South Carolina is in that in that group as well. So you're going to lose probably one of those games, maybe two of those games. And I look at those road trips to LSU and Ole Miss as two very likely possibilities there. So getting both Oklahoma and Alabama home, especially when we talk about Alabama and the struggles they've had on the road. All three of Kalen DeBoer's losses were on the road last year. Two of those games, they may have been a favorite in the Tennessee game too, but I know for sure they were favorites against Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, and they obviously blew both of those games. So you're getting Kalen DeBoer in Alabama in an uncomfortable situation. Going to be on a Saturday night. It's going to be homecoming. The place is going to be nuts. Like, you absolutely have to take advantage of that game coming up on October 25th.
Yeah, and Alabama will already have been tested on the road against Florida State week 1. Then they go to Georgia for a night game in September. I mean, and they'll go to Missouri as well. But, like, we'll learn a lot about this Alabama team very early on in the year before they even come to South Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously you talk about Oklahoma, which is going to be coming in off of the State Fair game against Texas the week before, and again that just seems like a must opportunity for South Carolina to take advantage of.
Is that the State Fair game?
Yeah, so they'll play Texas in Dallas the week before.
I'm sorry.
They take on South Carolina.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about South Carolina with their State Fair game when the State Fair is.
No, not that one. I'm sorry. I understand how that could. I understand how that could generate some confusion. My bad on that.
No, you're good, man. You're good. Yeah, I mean, look, the State Fair is probably going to be there that week anyway in October. So
we're ready for the State Fair, clearly.
No.
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just get this out there. The State Fair is okay, but I hate how much traffic it generates on game day. It is awful.
It's atrocious.
It's awful. It's awful. And honestly, the State Fair is one of those things that, do you guys feel like you could go to it once and be fine and never go back again? Because that's kind of how I feel.
I've honestly not gone out and ventured into the State Fair. I've been there while the game's taking place, obviously. But yeah, I haven't really dove into it too much.
Yeah, so
I'm to the point where it's more of, what's a food trend that they're trying? I might go more try lunchtime or something.
I have. My wife has brought me the donut burger from there, so I have tried food from there, and it is calorous and delicious as you would imagine.
Yep, exactly. But it's once a year, so you figure go check it out, have something terrible, and
for sure.
So we'll see. I'm guessing Oklahoma will probably be the State Fair game, though.
Well, yeah, I'll have to look at the schedule
because
on that, but that sounds like
so.
Yeah, that's true. So that sounds about right. Speaking of Alabama, we'll continue on the conversation. Take a listen to what Kalen DeBoer had to say yesterday about the standard he's being held to out there in Tuscaloosa as the X Point rolls alongside our head live from Digital Drive at SEC Media Days here on the game.
Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system. But did you also know they have great deals for repairs? That's right, they do. So if your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can still help. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and no credit check required. So if you're the homeowner, all you need is a valid bank account. That's it. That's all you need. Nothing more. So don't wait. Call AAA Heating and Air today and get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air. Comfort you can trust.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head live here at SC Media Days on Digital Drive. As always, got to thank all the great partners that are allowing us to be out here this week, including lawyer Lisa. Need to talk estate planning, elder law, elder care, probate. Call lawyer Lisa at 803-563-5163 or go to lawyerlisa.com. Jack, in that last segment there, we were talking about the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Oklahoma Sooners, but obviously Alabama, the team that is the bigger deal right now in the SEC. And Kalen DeBoer underachieved in year number one with 9-3 and missed an expanded 12-team playoff. And that's a standard that's not going to hold up too well for those folks out there in Tuscaloosa too much longer if he continues to do that. Kalen DeBoer yesterday talked about the standard that he's held to being Alabama's head coach.
For if you internally ask us, no, like we fell short of making the playoffs, as simple as that, right? And giving yourself a chance to go compete for a championship. I think there's a lot of things that I'm super proud of that are happening within the program that are part of the progression. Yeah, we want it right now too. So yeah, we fell short. Our guys, again, I'm proud of them and the way they've responded to, us, not realizing the goals that we, set out to have and getting back just to work, focusing on the main thing. I feel that's always been the case, but sometimes there's just ups and downs you got to go through, unfortunately, that we had to experience. But in the end, we're going to take advantage of the failures we've had and be better because of it.
And Jack, we've had this conversation many times about, when Nick Saban retired, we always talk, or when Nick Saban was going to eventually retire, we always talked about, man, who do you hire after that, and not wanting to be the guy to replace the guy because you're held to this impossible standard because everything that you do gets directly compared to what the previous guy did. And look, there's never going to be another Nick Saban. He is the most successful and best coach in the history of college football, and really nothing I feel like Kalen DeBoer can ever do will ever, amount up to that unless he goes out there and wins 8 national championships, which I just don't see happening with the way the sport is, his nature today. So no matter what, even if he does make the playoff, even if he does win a national championship, I still feel like he's always going to be viewed as, well, he's still not Nick Saban no matter what happens.
And I think that's why we saw so many names out there that we thought, oh, they could be a perfect fit for the Alabama job, and they don't end up taking it or becoming the coach just because of what you said right there. I mean, they got to be the next guy up after Nick Saban and try to continue what he already did at Alabama, which is such an extremely high standard that no coach will ever meet. And I don't think will ever happen again, no matter, how long they try. So with Kalen here, I think it's just about trying to just be him, not trying to be Nick Saban or be anything like that. Have your own flavor to it. And, last year, tough year for the program because they lost 4 games. They lost the bowl game to Michigan, obviously, and then they had some really tough losses during the year. But at times, this team was great. I mean, who could forget when they went to Death Valley and destroyed LSU? I mean, not every team can go in there and do that, and they've had some really good games too. Obviously, Georgia they beat South Carolina in a thriller. So this Alabama team, they got a lot of good pieces returning this year, but the expectations are going to be high. I mean, we're talking about playoff or bust for this team, and it's not even that. I think you got to go on a little bit of a run just to convince these Alabama fans that are already not happy probably that, hey, maybe the program can get back to where it used to be a little bit.
I do wonder, though, at what point, as an Alabama fan base, do you have to reset your expectations? And I'm not saying that you can't still have the aspirations of winning a national championship because, again, you look at what Kalen DeBoer's doing on the recruiting trail, especially as of late, they're still pulling in 4- and 5-star talents, but there's just something about Nick Saban that took that program to the next level. And, again, I'm not saying they can't win national championships under Kalen DeBoer, but I think Alabama fans have to get used to going through periods of not being the top dog. Again, they may jump up and win a national championship every couple of years, and in the next decade they could have maybe 2 or so or something along those lines. But I think this, they have to almost break themselves of this mold and this idea that they're always going to be right there at the tippy top in that 1, 2, or 3 teams that is at the very top of college football, because that's just really not going to be possible, I don't think.
The day that Kalen DeBoer was hired, or I guess even the day that Nick Saban officially announced he was retiring, I think that's the moment where people, especially Alabama fans, should have started to temper their expectations a little bit, just because it's like, hey, like no one's going to be able to do what the GOAT of college football has ever done. I mean, that's why he's the GOAT, because he's won more national championships than anyone, and he was doing it at such an efficient rate at Alabama. Like every year, this program was right in contention for a national championship. Now, is that a more realistic expectation? Sure, I think it is, because the Alabama brand name is still big enough to bring in a lot of recruits. I know in this day and age with NIL and stuff and money and other factors, I know it's not as easy to say like, hey, like you have like the big brand name and that will get you a lot of recruits, which it still will. But
Sure.
I think Alabama, just in general, with Kalen DeBoer, they're doing a pretty good job in recruiting right now. Just landed a really nice class for this year. They continue to do that, it's going to stack up, and maybe it will take a little bit more time to reach a national championship or win a title. But I think at some point we are going to see this Kalen DeBoer Alabama project get towards a national championship at some point.
And for this year specifically, again, ton of talent. You've got had guys like Deontay Lawson at linebacker, Caden Proctor here yesterday that are thought of two of the best at their respective positions, but quarterback is still the big question mark, and they haven't ultimately decided on who that's going to be. We think Ty Simpson leads the way, but Austin Mack, Keelan Russell, who's a highly touted freshman, also kind of in that mix. And again, we're kind of not used to this with Alabama. I know there have been some years where it's been a question going into the season to a degree, but I don't think we've had this much uncertainty about their quarterback spot and guys that are relatively unproven up to this point. Certainly not in the Saban era, which gives you pause when you think about how good this team can be this year.
But the good news for whoever's at quarterback this year, we think it's going to be Ty Simpson, but we're not sure for sure yet with what Kalen was saying the other day. You know, they'll have playmakers out there, right? The two big ones I think of, you're going to have Jam Miller out there at running back. You're also going to have Ryan Williams at receiver. So I think they're going to be fine this year. Again, they have a lot of guys returning. They didn't lose anyone in the portal in that spring wave, which is really, really big. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, I think the expectations are high for this team. But again, they got to go on the road, as I mentioned before, for a few tough road games to begin the year. You got Florida State, which we'll see what Florida State is. We're not sure what they're going to be yet,
Yeah.
But first game of the year will be tough, and then you go to Georgia later in the month.
I said earlier on or it was last week, excuse me. I debated, fan bases that have the opportunity to be the most upset in week number 1, and I feel like the loser of the Alabama-Florida State game is probably going to be at the top of that list, because if you're Alabama, who are we to lose to a team that went 2-10 last year? And if you're FSU, outside of losing like a tight game that's decided on a last-second field goal, you're going to say, oh, no, we still suck.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting, and I don't know what to expect out of Florida State again this year, but, I can't imagine they're much worse than last year, so.
They can't. You don't think they can be worse, but you never know.
They could go 0-12. That's one thing.
I think Thomas Castellanos may be walking back some of his trash talk from earlier. We'll get to that a little bit later on, in this hour. But coming up next, I want to look at another team that talked yesterday, one that's not on South Carolina's schedule, but one that's always going to be under the microscope given their history in the SEC, that being the Florida Gators. We'll hear what Billy Napier had to say about expectations for the team in blue and orange coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Thursday, live from SEC Media Days here on The Game. Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head live from Digital Drive at SEC Media Days. Jack and Jen back in the studios there in Columbia, which I am looking forward to getting back and seeing you guys tomorrow and sleeping in my own bed. I do appreciate my parents for allowing me to stay at their house, but the bed in what is now my old room, my grandmother's room, when she stays with them for most of the year, not quite as comfortable as my own bed. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that coming up tonight after the 3.5 hour drive once I get done with the show today.
Now, what time do you plan on leaving today? Like, are you you're staying to the last Dr. Pepper's drink, right?
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
You taking one or two for the road?
Yeah, I'll take a couple. I bought an energy drink at the gas station yesterday that I have sitting in my cup holder as we speak. That'll definitely help me get through those last couple of hours of the drive there. But yeah, I do 12 to 3 obviously with Bill, and I will be cutting out as quickly as humanly possible to get on the road. And I'm hoping I can get through Augusta before traffic gets bad out there, which again, I'm kind of timing it out. I'll be there right around 5 o'clock. So that may slow me down a little bit, but yes, if I could get to Columbia before 7, I would consider that a win.
That would be a big win right there. I mean, you leave around like 3:30. The drive was pretty smooth when I left, but again, that was a little bit later. I hit Atlanta traffic, and
sure,
that was a pain. But once you get out of there, hopefully you'll be pretty home free.
I will say, and again, I've lived here my entire life, that there's so many roads and twists and turns in Atlanta. It's impossible to navigate these city streets sometimes without a map. But I have found a pretty quick way that's only a couple of turns and getting back to I-20, where you don't have to get on 75. So I'm going to try and employ that strategy today and hopefully get ahead of some of the rush as I'm trying to get out of here.
Yeah, no, but
if not, work out a few of the NASCAR moves that you can do.
Yeah,
little bumping, little.
I've drafted a little bit. I've slingshotted around some people this week in traffic, so I'm putting those moves to the test. That's for sure.
Just no hail melons. That's all I ask.
No. I don't want to scratch up the side of my car. That'd probably be less than ideal, and I'd probably take the mirror with it too.
Yeah, that's true. You kind of need that.
Well, okay. Best of luck to
you. Thank you. Looking forward to that. We talk about expectations with Kalen DeBoer and Alabama, and we talk about a program like Florida as well. And I look at Billy Napier, and he was somebody that a year ago we thought was truly a dead man walking. There was no way that they were going to be able to survive that gauntlet of a schedule that they had, particularly in the month of November. And lo and behold, they did that, pulling off some big victories down the stretch very into that season against teams like LSU, against teams like Florida. And here's Billy Napier still standing tall, talking at the main room yesterday here at SEC Media Days. But once again, we look at the schedule and say, okay, Billy, how are you going to survive this one? Though I feel like this upcoming season, there's more confidence with the second year of DJ Lagway. But here's Billy Napier talking about the expectations that are placed on him as the head coach of Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I would say about expectations is when we talk about expectation, I think the important part is what we expect from each other. And I think we've learned that, right? I think it's not only do you need to block out noise, but it's absolutely necessary that you do it, right? So I think we got to have high expectations for each other. We see each other every day, right? I think this is player to player, it's coach to player, coach to coach, all parts of our organization. So that's where we spend our focus. I really believe that's when the magic happens, right? Is when, you look around that locker room and you trust the people. I think there's connection. There's a chemistry that's needed in this game. I think if you look at who's had success over the last couple of years, it's veteran teams that have really good connection. So when I think about expectations, I think about what we expect from each other. I also think that it's about execution. You talk about our schedule. I firmly believe that that'll be earned in the fall. So we can talk a lot about potential for the next 40 days, but we'll play the games in the fall.
Again, Billy Napier there talking about expectations, that tough schedule they have for Florida. And again, as I mentioned a moment ago, and one thing that really has stood out to me this week is obviously seeing so many of these star players around the conference in person. Obviously, they're walking around in suits and not in shoulder pads and helmets. But DJ Lagway really stood out to me yesterday when I saw him walking around the halls here on Digital Drive. His physical presence is very, very intimidating. I would hate to have to be someone to square up and try and bring him to the ground. And there's a lot of belief down there at Florida that he, much like we have at Norcell this year, is going to be able to elevate that program to a different level and potentially back to the level that people expect down there in Gainesville.
I can imagine. I've never seen DJ in person, but I can imagine he stacks up very well to what Lenoris is. I mean, he's listed at 6'3", 240, and that sounds about on par with Lenoris. So I can imagine he's a big kid. But, yeah, I mean, look, going into this year, I think the expectations are not just high for Florida, but I think also high for DJ Lagway in his second year now as the starter. Hopefully he's able to stay healthy, play the full year. And if he is, I think the sky is really the limit for him. Now, how does that equate to success on the field for Florida? Well, I mean, obviously they got the 2 winnable games at the beginning of the year against Long Island and then South Florida. But then the schedule really picks up for about a month, I would say, where you got at LSU, under the lights, by the way, at Miami, and then you get the bye week, and then Texas in Gainesville, and then you're at College Station playing A&M. So, I mean, look, you want to talk about difficulty right out of the gate. I think those are the games that you really could lose, but you also could win, just like you did last year towards the end of the year.
And those 2 back-to-back road games at LSU and Miami could potentially put them in a really tough spot. If they lose those games, they'd obviously be 2-2, 1 game into SEC play. And yeah, I know you've got the likes of Mississippi State and Kentucky on your schedule that I think Florida shouldn't have any problems with. But you still got Georgia, you still got Ole Miss, you still got to go to A&M, you still got Texas. Like, their margin for error would essentially be 0 if they cannot at least split those games between LSU and Miami. And in particular, when you talk about the fact that Miami game leads into the first bye week, if they're 2-2 at that point in time and lose both those games, especially in bad fashion, I think we go right back to where we were about a year ago, where people are calling for Billy Napier's head already.
Now, I think the schedule only gets tougher from there. I mean, you got, once November starts, there's no breaks with an SEC schedule, but specifically for Florida, I mean, we anticipate Mississippi State's not going to be very good this year. So you have that game at home in October, right after A&M. But then you have the bye week, and then it picks right back up in November with the what do they call it, Tyler? The greatest cocktail party,
the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, and I will not recognize it by any other name. You cannot call it the River City Showdown or whatever stupid name they tried to come up with the other years past. It is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I don't care if it's politically incorrect. That is its name.
Well, anyway, the world's
rant over.
The world's largest outdoor cocktail party. All right. November 1st, Georgia at home. Then you go to Kentucky. Then it's at Ole Miss. I mean, that's tough. I mean, I don't know how Kentucky's going to be. I don't anticipate them being very good. And we'll see if Mark Stoops even has his job by that point. But that could be tough right there. And then Tennessee at home. And, I mean, who knows about wild card Florida State. So, point being, this schedule top to bottom, outside of a few weeks here and there, it's brutal.
And again, I tip my cap to what Billy Napier was able to do last year, because I certainly didn't think that team was capable of surviving and him still having his job at this point in time. So you give him credit for that. But unfortunately, when you are the head coach at Florida, given the fact that program has won national championships and has competed for SEC titles in recent years with coaches like Dan Mullen and Jim McElwain, your standard is not to the level of Alabama, insanely high, but it's pretty darn high. So they're not going to settle, even if he is winning some of these bigger games, for just going 6-6 or 6-7 on a year-in-year-out basis. You have to eventually get to the point where you're winning 8, 9, 10 games and factoring yourself into the college football playoff once again if you want to stick around down there in Gainesville.
So let's talk expectations. All right. So what do we consider a good season for Florida? And I think a good season for Florida means that Billy Napier is not getting fired, I guess. So
yeah,
I'm going to say probably about 8. I think you got to get 9 wins probably. What say you?
I will probably put it at 8 personally, because that at least shows that you're taking a step in the right direction. Because again, his time at Florida has been 6-7, 5-7, and then they went 7-5 in the regular season last year and won the bowl game. So just talking purely about the regular season, if you can add an extra win, that at least shows you're moving in the right direction. I believe you would have Lagway for one more year, because I believe he was a true
you have
sophomore.
for another year.
So you have him next year. Hype will be insanely high. So if you can get to the 8-win mark, go 8-4, and maybe pull off a win against one of those teams you're not expected to beat, I think that'll be enough to get people off Billy Napier's back, because that at least shows that you're moving in the right direction.
And again, it would be great for Florida to win 10, 11, 12 games this year, but that's tough, especially with the schedule. I mean, everyone's got it tough in the SEC, I think. But Florida, specifically this year, especially with some of their non-conference games, it's going to be hard. So I think getting to 8, 9 wins is a good year for them as they're continuing to try to climb upwards.
And again, they'll wrap up the regular season against their in-state rival in Florida State. Thomas Castellanos has generated a lot of conversation this offseason when it comes to his trash talking ahead of that Week 1 game against Alabama. Deontay Lawson addressed that trash talk, and Castellanos may be walking it back a little bit. We'll dive into that coming up next as we wrap up hour number 1 of the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you here on The Game.
I definitely noticed it. How can you miss it? But yeah, I don't really have a response. I mean, I said earlier, all disrespect will be addressed accordingly, and I stand on that right there.
Ooh, those are some strong words there. Deontay Lawson, linebacker for Alabama, yesterday when asked about the Thomas Castellanos trash talk that we heard about a couple weeks ago, saying basically to On3, they're not the same Alabama. They don't have Nick Saban. We'll take care of them in that week number 1 game down there in Tallahassee. Word has certainly gotten back to the Alabama locker room as they seem to be prepared to handle Mr. Castellanos when it comes to week number 1. And Jack, given what I saw out of both teams last year, I tend to believe that Alabama's kind of going to come out on the winning side of this.
Do people not ever learn to not talk trash about Alabama? Like, I know as Thomas Castellanos said, they don't have Nick Saban to save them. Okay, true, but you also remember when I'm trying to remember. I don't even know who the player was from Vanderbilt. Like, probably like in 2018 that talked all that smack about how Vanderbilt's going to beat Alabama when they come to their house and stuff. Then they go on to lose 59-0. I could totally see something like that happening this next month.
Well, and this was earlier on in the day, but it seems like Thomas Castellanos maybe kind of walking back a little bit of what he did have to say with that trash talk a couple of weeks ago.
For real though, like, bro, you watch any interview, like, I don't never talk like that, bro. But like, them boys coming off of 2-10, I just install some confidence. Feel me? That's all I'm trying to do. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get some confidence. Yeah, like, I'm trying to get my boys ready to go. Feel me? I'm trying to make it the biggest stage. Feel me?
So that was at some kind of quarterback camp or something along those lines. Robbie Ashford was actually there earlier on in the video that I found on Twitter yesterday. But it seems like from that context, at least, that Thomas Castellanos maybe didn't necessarily believe what he was saying, but was trying to juice up his team, give them a little bit of energy, give them a little bit of fight to help a team that, again, went 2-10 a year ago, have a little extra motivation going into a game like Alabama. Jack, do we believe this?
I mean, I don't blame him, to be honest. I mean, for saying what he had to say, just because. I mean, he's right when he does say, like, he needs to fire up his team and stuff. They're coming off an awful year, so I can understand it from that point. But nah, he said it. I think he meant it, and he's probably going to pay the price for it if I had to imagine, just because Alabama, Nick Saban's not there, but this is still a lot of the players. I mean, Deontay Lawson played for Nick Saban in Alabama, so I mean, I can imagine there are going to be a lot of brutal hits on Castellanos if Florida State's offensive line is not protecting him well enough.
Yeah, I think Alabama's going to do their best to tee off on him legally, of course, and the Alabama fans will certainly enjoy every single hit that is placed on Thomas Castellanos in that in that week 1 game down there in Tallahassee. But again, I think we all know you got to really be careful about things you say, especially today in a digital social media-esque world, because it spreads like wildfire. And as much as players say they don't pay attention to what's being said, they don't pay attention to the outside noise, you talk smack about their team, oh, guess what? That is going to go number 1 on the bulletin board, and probably has been for some time, as they are 44 days away from kicking off their game down there in Tallahassee.
It should be a good one. I don't know how Florida State's really going to be this year, but again, I just cannot imagine under Mike Norvell they're going to be much worse than they were last season. So I think week 1, it's a brand new start. It should be a really highly anticipated matchup. And Alabama's got a lot to prove, but Florida State's got more to prove, in my opinion, just because of how bad they were a season ago. And getting back to where they were not too long ago, that would be impressive if they were able to do it.
Well, and I said, the other day that, again, I feel like out of all the fan bases that are investing into week number 1, the loser of that game is probably going to be the most distraught out of anyone in terms of where they see their team. Because, again, if Alabama loses to a team that went 2-10 a year ago, they're, oh, man, the wheels are falling off. This DeBoer guy's not the right guy. All those kind of things are going to be said. And then if FSU, especially if they get beat by a substantial amount, if it's a 42-17 type of blowout type of game, then I think the pitchforks and torches will be coming out and heading up the road to try and run Mike Norvell out of town already.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, Alabama fans are not going to have much patience if they see their team lose week 1. So I mean, again, it's very early in the year, and one loss does not knock you out of the playoffs now in this day and age. But, you lose week one. Again, both these programs are going to have tough road games coming up throughout the year. I mean, it very well could be one of those that really sets you back a little bit.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that one. I love that we get some pretty juicy matchups in week number one. Of course, South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and we'll obviously dive into this more as we get closer to that game coming up in 45 days. That game does have the potential to be a sneaky good game. Obviously, we'd love to see South Carolina go in there, just blow the doors off Virginia Tech and leave no doubt. But that's a VT team that was really good on defense despite some struggles on offense last year. So especially with South Carolina having its own concerns on defense, this could be a game that could be a little bit of a shootout of sorts over at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in week one.
I'm looking forward to it. I hope it's an entertaining game. I think South Carolina should be able to win that one pretty handedly. But again, you never know. It's week one, and crazy things can happen during the first week of the season. So looking forward to it, though.
Look forward to that. Jack, appreciate your patience and working with me this week while we've been doing things remotely. We will be back together tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, and Jen, thank you so much. I know you already deal with those goofballs in the morning, Elijah and Preston. You've had to put up with me and Jack for the extra hour this week, and we certainly appreciate that. Yes, Jen Jensen.
Yeah, all good. A lot of fun.
All right, coming up next, Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Crane School and Hearing, playing some interviews from earlier on this week here on the game.
So. 29 years she's got a place down in Oklahoma City, Florida. And I want to say beach over here. Thanks so much for appreciate it. You can do that to get mine. All right, let's go a second. 9 o'clock, go away. Boom.
What time are you leaving? Oh, you have to stay till with them? Okay. Right. That's right, because you drove Jay here, didn't you? Dang. That's brutal. So listen to nothing but 80s rock, 70s and 80s rock all the way here. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Yeah, okay. Oh, dang it. I'm never a gas receipt person, but I went and filled up before I left Lexington on Saturday, and I couldn't get a receipt at the pump, so I went inside and told ladies like, "Hey, can I get a receipt for pump one?" And she gives me a receipt. I go back out there. I'm glad I checked it before I left because she gave me the receipt of the person in front of me in line. I was like, "This isn't gonna work." Went in there. I'm like, "Hey, I need the receipt," and she's like, "What was your total? I can't find it." It took like 5 minutes for her to finally find it. But I was like, I really need this receipt, please.
Oh my god. And you're like, then while she's looking that up, and it's just like awkward, like sound straight in your head, you're like, why did it come in?
Yeah, I know.
Like, I need to know why.
I thought about it for a second, like, can I just eat the $30? Is it really that big of a deal? But thankfully she found it. Yeah. Because again, I never get them. I'm like, I don't need that. I'm going to throw it away anyway. Sure. Yep. Like, damn it. I mean, so are they going to comp your Airbnb too?
Yes.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, we were back on the air, what, 2 days later? Yeah. Sure. Right. Yeah, oh, I bet. Yeah. Oh my God! Wow. I guess for the higher totals, they really comb over that and they're like, all right, did he really need this? Could he have slept in his car?
And the crazy thing is, I think it was like, it was nice things on 270 bucks.
Nice. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Was that the guy that was the kept asking you about sports radio or something, or is that somewhere else? Okay. Yeah.
Tennessee was there.
Sure. I'm gonna lock my door. That's fun. That's As you run into some weirdos doing that.
A weird thing to say.
No, not at all.
For someone that you really don't know.
It's like I'm not your bro. I'm not your guy, pal. I'm not your buddy guy.
All right, it is 9:06. I'm gonna need the here.
Oh, yes.
Yes, the picture. I guess I can leave this over here, but I guess the entire. Well, here's the difference. Yeah. That's right. Here's we do. But the other thing is that Texas today, and now ballot day, that would you just got to go. That's what I'm saying. Texas, Georgia, what is it? This is the there's no more fun. The ones that were here Monday are still here. We just got here last night. I'm like, that's correct.
Let's be at the longest.
Yeah, one of them, somebody was named Rocky. I voted for him. It was one of your
Rocco Wallace.
It was Rocco something. You know what? Yeah, here. Stickers. We have a stainless steel trash can in the game. Somebody was like stickering up with two things real quick. Good job there on the music and singing. See, they have like 20 different. That's what they got like these in the you just got a short amount of time.
And that's a collection. That's for a final piece of the wall for it.
Yeah. He loves music. When he was done with the same day. Mr. Blank gets advice on that. It's how conservative, smart for the band. Good job there getting that out, Roger. That's why the city of Pittsburgh. You seen this? So somebody put this out. Breaking news: the Danimal Band is named the Hawks' first project in global brand ambassador. A groundbreaking announcement that underscores the evolving landscape of athletics. That's what you want. I basically.
Oh, so you like it?
Officially a staggering $5 million deal. Look at the team's inaugural global brand ambassador. This unprecedented partnership aimed to elevate the Arkansas Razorbacks football legacy to the international stage promoting program and its history, values, and graduation worldwide. And there's so anyway, so Tom Murphy.
She has.
I have no idea. So that's what so Tom Murphy just said that to me and said, and so anyway, so this is what he said. He reached out to Dan, and Dan had texted me. If you missed it, I was trying to write up and saying, this is what the Dan Aiken said to Tom Murphy. Quote, I am the unofficial head hog GM, and I will give my proclamations on a weekly basis with 70,000 buzz. Besides that, this is all BS. And I don't know. I don't recognize the website. I can't see what it is. There's no tagline on other days. I don't know where it's at. So anyway, that's but it gets your attention. Right? If you first saw it, he's somebody who's in a lot of trouble.
That's probably
Like you said, son, Josh is well, that's obviously anyway, that just happened. Afterwards, they need to figure out where it is. Let's check in with the listener now.
We have proven that we can get the hell out of Dodge.
last year in Orleans, you just got a cooperation.
So we've also proven we can do tomorrow's show.
Yeah, we did.
So
yes, I might. I think I fell asleep mid-sentence in that car ride back to the station. Yeah, so I think I was mid-sentence.
yeah, we were talking about.
Good morning, Melinda, and thanks for changing your time a little bit. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, we were talking about something and I like turned around and where you were and the next thing I know you're like,
Yes.
Out. Just completely passed out the backstage.
Well, Melinda, Randy would like to say good morning to you. Randy, go ahead and get my chip together. Is that right? Melinda? Long time. How about that, Melinda? Well, who's a bigger fan? I wonder, Rod and Josh. Randy Wade, one of the bigger fans, or Justin Moore is also. Time love. There it goes. It's breaking it down there. By the way, too. Roger, Melinda had the best idea for the cover of for the Notre Dame game. Daddy's hands. All right, Melinda, what do we need to know about the weather first? Hot's going to be staying on for a while. What about
for the short segment for the daily hour. It's cold. It's going to get cold for about 8 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, I like to although it was what I want to do is kind of
wow, look at you.
I mean, seriously, really, it's more about 4 to 5. Yeah, again, you tell me. Do you think we can get out of it?
You're talking dirty.
Dave is going to be in at 11:50.
Yes.
And by then we'll be right there.
I'll have to do it.
Tip of the hat to you guys over at KTV to continue to help raise Texas flood victims, which has been mentioned here several times by the comments about this.
We're trying to record that to be what, 6 minutes?
The same thing, like instead of Jaber, the 3 of us can do so there won't be a put on here.
I'm waiting for the next thing.
What are you looking for?
No.
Looking honestly, if there was ways that we could walk it back, we would, but then we talk about expanding to 16, so
Sure.
that goes right out the window, right? So we're sort of at our limits, and we're going to do as best we can to get those games in if we do expand, but we don't have a lot more room to greater good.
Last 30 seconds here. Do those conversations get heated? I know they're behind closed doors.
I don't really want to get into how heated they get, but I will just say sometimes I walk out of there, my eyebrows are gone.
Oh,
so no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I mean, they're intense, right? They're intense conversations, but again, they are professionals, and they're going to treat each other with dignity and respect in the room. But they're not easy conversations, and so they're going to put it on the table. They're going to be honest with each other, and then they're going to walk out and shake hands and keep being great colleagues, so it's interesting.
Well, Mr. Clarks, thanks so much for taking a little bit of time. I know it's a very, very busy week for you, but we're always down to talk college football playoff and this ongoing debate of what format's going to look like, and excited to see this finally come to fruition.
No, I love talking about it. I appreciate what you guys do for college football.
Thank you.
Keeping our fans engaged and educated, and for letting me be a part of your discussion today.
Absolutely.
So
thank you so much. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Live from Digital Drive here at SEC Media Days, wrapping up this portion of day number 2. Jay and Terry going to take you home with the post-game show coming up at 3. But excited and happy to be joined now for the next couple minutes by Mr. College Football himself, Tony Barnhart, sitting at the table with us. Tony, appreciate your time. How are we doing today?
We're doing great, guys. We're having a marvelous time. And, people are getting excited about the SEC. Sorry. And, yeah, it is – well, I got a home game, and I can never argue
Boom, there you go.
Game, so.
Yeah, and
it wasn't that far of a trip for us.
No, that's right. Yeah. Well, Tyler lives he's from Covington.
Yeah,
so
right.
He's been with family this week.
I've been staying with the folks and commuting every day.
Excellent.
So traffic hasn't been too bad.
Oh, you're a good son.
Yeah, that's right. He's a good one. And I'm usurping Bill Gunner's place here for a few minutes. It's always great to have you. We'll jump in because there's so much going on. Where does Tony Barnhart stand on the scheduling issues and how it relates directly to the college football playoff? I'm it's sort of the Tom Petty, the waiting is the hardest part.
You're doing the 8 versus 9 debate?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm totally for 9 games. First of all, who doesn't want more SEC football? Okay?
Right.
The coaches, but beyond them. Okay.
Yep.
And they, by the way, they don't get a vote.
Right.
I just thought I'd mention that. No, you can do so many more things with the 9 games conference schedule. One of the things you can do is you have a situation with 9 games. If you play every team, in the league home and away for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
If you stay 4 years, you get to play every team both home and away.
Right.
So that's but the big thing for me is I like the secondary rivalries. What I mean by that is Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee. I'd like to see Florida, Auburn come back.
Sure.
You have the flexibility to do that because you would have 3 permanent opponents as opposed to 1, which limits what you can do. So, the Big Ten went to 9 games a long time ago. They seem to have survived quite nicely.
Right.
So I am for 9.
Do you? I know what the commissioner was saying yesterday, that nobody would trade their schedule for ours. I don't disagree with him, but there will be the pushback to just the sheer number of games.
I know that. But look, you can make a greater case if you're playing the 9-game schedule that we play a tougher schedule than anybody else. Look, the commissioner's got his point of view is out there. When we were in Destin, they gave us that handout at the end of the meetings in Destin. We knew exactly I would do it too. That's what you should do. You're going to have a big argument. I just think, and particularly from a financial standpoint, they certainly need the money. So I'm a 9-game kind of guy, knowing the coaches don't care for it.
Well, and it seems like at some point ESPN's going to be able to give you a number figure on what that 9th game is going to be, and then I feel like that's when the tone starts to change a little bit. Like, okay, now we're feeling a little bit better about doing that because again, you're making more money by playing that 9th
Well,
game.
I think you're exactly right, because what was happening is they were having this debate out in public, and I told somebody, I said, there's a number there. And if they get to the number, then they'll do the deal. If they don't get to the number, they won't do the deal. So. Yeah, I just think you go to 9, and I'm just not willing to give up the Georgia-Auburn rivalry, which is my favorite game of all the games that I do. It's just and the idea, if you go to 9 games and you, as I said, if you stay 4 years, you'll play every team in the league home and away. And if you come to the SEC and stay 4 years, you should play in every venue in this conference.
I was going to say there was the ridiculous thing for a while where, A&M came in 2012 and they didn't see Georgia until 2021. And there were other examples of that around the league, like these two teams not seeing each other for over a decade. That kind of thing should never, ever happen.
And that all goes away with the 9-game conference schedule. So I just hope they see it. And I think somebody said to me, it says, the answer is money. Now, you tell me what's the question, but no matter what the question is, the answer is money.
Right.
And that's the case here.
How do you feel that this is, and again, coming back to it, relates directly to the delay in a college football playoff format, a longer-term format, and then separately the automatic qualification that the Big Ten seems to want relative to maybe a 5+11 that's gaining more traction? Where do you feel like that impacts that?
Well, I just think they're going to come – the Big Ten's going to say, look, the Big Ten is trying to use their leverage to get the SEC to go to 9 games. Remember our buddy Brett Bielema?
Yeah.
He said, boy, if the SEC would just go to 9 conference games, with all due respect to Coach Bielema, I don't think the SEC is going to be taking their scheduling advice from the head coach at Illinois. Just me. That's just me. So I think there will come a time when the Big Ten realizes, because the other conferences, the ACC is going to announce next week they're for 5-11.
Right.
The Big 12's already announced
Right.
they want to do it. So I think you're going to have the three other conferences want to do it one way and they want to do it another, and I just think they'll come to their senses.
And I know Greg Sankey yesterday even threw out there that, hey, I'm cool with staying at 12, but it seems like 16 is inevitable. We talk about the value of the regular season so much, and it used to mean absolutely everything when you only had 2 teams playing for the national championship. Now you have 12, likely going to go to 16. Where do you stand with the value of the regular season right now and what it could be in the next couple of years?
Well, I think the value, as you go exponentially up the number of conference games you play, is it 1 or 2 games? No, what it did last year and what it will do when they go to 16 is that they're going to be all these meaningful games because you've got 16 slots to make. So almost every game is going to mean something. I think it doesn't detract from the regular season. It enhances the regular season because almost every game matters.
Talking to Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, and we'll get into some of the things that he is doing this upcoming season, which are very cool in my personal opinion. Let me stay with this for a second because I do, in one sense, agree with Tony Petitti when he says that the automatic qualification system would take a lot of work out of the hands of the committee. And I think some people want that. At the same time, I understand that at the AQs, Tony, some people see, oh, it's just a participation trophy and it's the 2 big guys getting more than everybody else. So I see both sides, but I do agree with the portion of taking more work from the committee and allowing football to make that determination. But is there a net ranking equivalent in football or those kind of things? I just don't know where that middle ground really is.
And I understand that. I just think your better option is to go the 5-11 route and just emphasize really hard to the committee where they need to really knuckle down and study hard when it comes to strength of schedule.
Right.
Strength of schedule, strength of results, strength of record, whatever you want to call it. My man Joel Klatt, I know he doesn't like the 5-11, but I just think 5-11 is the way to go because more and more teams will be able to say it is November 15th and we're still in it.
Right.
More teams will be able to say that. And that was Roy Kramer's theory about divisional play.
Yeah.
More games in November would mean something if you went to division.
I agree with that part.
Tony Barnhart joining us here as we wrap up the halftime show. Let's kind of bring it in locally here. Carolina coming off of a strong campaign last year at 9-3. Sellers is coming back. Dylan Stewart's coming back. What do you like about the South Carolina team this year, and what's your outlook for them?
I mean, how good is Lenore Sellers? I mean, he can do everything. A lot of skill. And obviously, some good things on the defensive side. Look, South Carolina was playing as well as any team in the country at the end of last season. You know, and I'm sure they would have loved the season to continue on.
They thought that Clemson win was going to mean something more than it did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I like what Shane Beamer's done there. I think they'll be fun. But here's the thing: there are a lot of really good teams in the SEC, which means there are a lot of really good teams that can beat you on any given Saturday. It's hard to win 9 games in this league. It really is. And I think they've done a good job at South Carolina. We'll see.
Before we let you go, let's talk about a couple things. You're going into retirement, or so you say. You were joking with us before we came on the air about how Mrs. Barnhart may feel about that, but maybe that's another book. We'll see. But take us through in a couple minutes here what you're looking for in this last season that you're doing, because it's pretty unique.
Well, what I'm doing, it's really going to be a last tour around, really a thank you tour, celebration tour for me of all the wonderful venues I've been able to go to doing 50 years of this. And I'm going to take that plus the treasure trove of memories I already have and do an essay on each of the 16 teams there. For example, South Carolina. I'm going to write an essay. Coach Spurrier and I are pretty close, and I'm going to write an essay about the day that Steven Garcia and the game of his life.
Yeah,
he never played that well before. He never played that well again. But on that day, he was brilliant. I wrote that he was brilliant. I said it was the best game and I've seen Steve Spurrier call a lot of games. Best game I've ever seen him call, and what they did that day. And it's been interesting. Jerry Spurrier, Steve's wife, and I are close, and she speaks very fondly of Steven Garcia. She basically adopted him as their fifth child.
Yeah,
because he was a problem child, as you guys know from time to time. So it's that sort of thing. Tennessee, I was halfway to Knoxville, Tennessee, on September 11th, 2001, when the plane hit the Twin Towers. It hit the second Twin Towers. I was getting ready to do video. It was Tennessee Florida week. College game day was going to be there. I go up in advance and shoot some video footage. And so when the second plane hit, I'm calling Bristol, and I ended up I kept on going to Knoxville, interviewed a player by the name of Will Overstreet, great defensive All-American. He showed up wearing his practice gear, holding a cell phone. His sister was in Washington, D.C., and he could not find her. And we sat there and talked, and I said, you don't have to do this. This is not that important. He said, no, I want to do it. So I said, if that phone rings, go. And so the phone didn't ring. They eventually hooked up later on in the day. But it's those kind of memories and the decision by the SEC first to play, then not to play. But that's my Tennessee entry.
Right.
It's all these personal memories that I have over the years.
Yeah, and the Gamecocks got to play that first game against State in Starkville. So
that's in my Mississippi State.
Yeah,
and what that was like when the crowd, they held the American flag out, and somebody at the top of the upper deck yelled, "What a hell been like!"
Right.
And that was
incredible.
Oh,
I'm already excited about it, and you hadn't even written it yet. You're also representing the great folks, Gary Stoken and his folks, the Peach Bowl, the Bobby Dodd Trophy, and I know that means a lot to you here in Atlanta.
Well, it does, because the Dodd Trophy, the Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year award, is different than other Coach of the Year awards. The example is it's all about scholarship, leadership, integrity are the three pillars of the award. And this year, we'll give you an example. This year, Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame was our pick. And one of the things that's different about the award is that we don't hold a banquet and ask you to come to us and we give you the trophy. We go to you. We had a nice dinner with a bunch of alumni at Notre Dame. It was a great day, and that was really cool. So, scholarship, leadership, integrity, and I've been on the board of directors for 15 years. I'm very proud to be a part of it.
Yeah. Does the 50 year ago fresh out of Georgia student still look at this guy now and go, wow, that's pretty cool?
He managed to stay in the business this long. He managed, and 27 will be 50th anniversary for me and Mrs. Barnhart.
That's nice.
Why in the world did they put up with him for that long?
Well, we'll see. There's another book right there.
At least.
Or something more.
Welcome back in. It is the extra, or it's not the extra point. It's the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling Heating. Tyler Head along with you here on your Thursday, day 4 of SEC Media Days. Just watched Eli Drinkwitz make his rounds down there in the main room there. Spoke a little bit earlier, had some very interesting things to say. I think he might win quotes of the week when it comes to SEC Media Days. And it was funny. I was just having a conversation with Randy McMichael, who does sports radio in Atlanta at 92.9 The Game, talking about what Eli Drinkwitz had to say. And I brought up the point that we say a lot on here, that Drinkwitz might have the most punchable face in the SEC. He seemed to like that. So hopefully that is a nickname that can continue to trend throughout the SEC when it comes to Eli Drinkwitz, who, again, I think turned a lot of heads with things that he said this morning here at SEC Media Days. But we continue to look back on a lot of the coaches that talked yesterday. Talked earlier, Jack and I did, about what's Alabama with Kalen DeBoer and Billy Napier over at Florida. One coach that's not going to get a lot of talk coming away from Media Days is Jeff Levy at Mississippi State. So I'll show him a little bit of love, and we'll play a little bit of what he had to say yesterday. And starting off with cut number 11 here, Ed, just dealing with the high amount of roster turnover that this team is having to deal with once again.
For us, again, we're going to get things done and change the outcome this fall because of how we practice and how we prepare. That's the reality of it. I've talked a ton all day about, man, we also have to become a team. I feel like our football team today is a lot closer and a lot more connected than it was a year ago, even with all the turnover. I'm excited about that. I believe that's because of guys like Brennan Thompson. When you find a guy that's flat good enough to be able to be a difference maker on your team, but it's about the right stuff and the right person, they have a chance to truly impact, not just in between the white lines on the field, but in your locker room. And that's what we're looking for constantly. Again, a guy like Blake Shapen being able to be back for year 2, that's how that happens, how you create team. A guy like Isaac Smith, now year 3 for him at Mississippi State. You just got to have guys that are about the right stuff. Then we got to go practice the right way to change the outcome.
So Levy would go on to say at another point yesterday when talking to the media that about 80% of his roster is made up of guys in the first or second year of the program out there at Mississippi State. And, that's kind of been a point of conversation a lot this week. Kirby Smart said Georgia was at 54%. We did the math yesterday and determined that South Carolina was about at 45%. But 80% of your roster to be that new, all things considered, is a tough uphill climb for a guy like Jeff Levy. And look, he was put into a situation that was really tough. Again, Mike Leach had that program in a pretty good spot a couple of years ago, playing in the ReliaQuest Bowl, or had them go into the ReliaQuest Bowl before he unfortunately passed away. Then Zach Arnett takes over and really just kind of drives that thing to the ground. And Jeff Levy was brought in to be the long-term plan and to build that program back up, because it's been proven through Leach, through Dan Mullen, guys like that in recent years, that you can go there and have success if you get the right coach and the right right mixture going on out there. It's just that Jeff Levy has a lot of climbing to do to get them back to a stable place. And the unfortunate part is, you never want to becoming that stepping stone type of school, right? And look, Vanderbilt was dealing with this for a while as Clark Lee was taking over, where you can have a guy that can go out there and just absolutely ball out at a place like Vanderbilt. Think about a guy like Ray Davis a couple years ago that ran really well for them. Well, then he immediately transfers to another in-conference school in Kentucky because he sees that as a better opportunity. And you're starting to see that a little bit with guys at Mississippi State as well, when it comes to being able to show a little bit of promise and then immediately look at using that to elevate yourself to a program that's more ready-made to win and all those kind of things. So a tough challenge for Jeff Levy. Personality-wise, I like him. I think he's a good fit for what Mississippi State is. He obviously brings that up-tempo, spread him out, wide-open type of offensive philosophy that is hard to get everybody acclimated to. And that's the big issue that he runs into, is the fact that you got to have guys kind of ingrained in that system, right? It's something you have to develop. It's something you have to have guys there for the long haul to really ride it out. And if you're having such high, turnover and such low roster retention, you're going to have a really tough time building something sustainable with that as the years go by. Again, I think Levy seems like a likable guy, not outside of the fans, on the plains out there in Oxford. I don't think anybody actually really hates Mississippi State. But we'll see how successful they can be. I'm interested to see Blake Shapen, get a full year. He got hurt last year before really getting into SEC play. I believe got hurt in that Florida game as they're starting conference play. So I'm interested to see what he can do when fully healthy and if he can really be that true fit for what Jeff Levy does like to do on offense. That'll do it for the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head continuing live from Digital Drive here at SEC Media Days, the College Football Hall of Fame here on the game.
Good morning, guys.
What's up, Mr. Bird? How many days till kickoff are we?
Think we are at 45.
45. Take that a couple ways.
Yeah, I know, right?
I feel like the offense, even though they're not like incredibly talented, Piper figures that out when we get. All right, welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Hev live out at Digital Drive. Day 4 of SEC Media Days, wrapping up things today. Mark Stoops currently at the podium talking about the Kentucky Wildcats team that will obviously be traveling to South Carolina early on in the season once again this year. Chris Clark from his home studio and Wes Mitchell making his triumphant return. How was vacation, Wes?
It was good. I was going to say, boys, we're back together, but we're actually not. We're spread all around, but good to kind of see y'all. Tyler, what's the vibe in the ATL, man?
A little more laid back today. I think you had a lot of people that have already gotten out of town, a lot of empty tables around. But, man, the first 3 days, certainly, it's been very busy meeting people, talking to people, seeing some of these players and coaches in person. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it for my first media days experience.
Tyler, did you sneak off and go to the home run derby earlier this week?
I did not. I've had to commute back and forth an hour every single day to my parents' house, so I decided to go ahead and get out of town before the traffic got too bad that day.
Okay, I got you. Would have been tempting.
Yeah, again, and it's funny that it's 2 years in a row that media days and the All-Star festivities end up lining up with Dallas Arlington last year and obviously Atlanta this year. Don't know if that's going to be the case next year or not, but yeah, I know a lot of people here did make their way up there for those events up at Truist Park.
Yeah, I don't think we'll go 3 in a row, but that would be pretty cool. But yeah, glad to be back, guys. I was trying to think about how many days we are until kickoff before the show. Are we going to get a 1945 Gamecocks trivia question or what?
So Chris, I found it so funny last night, when talking about the show today, Wes's pressing question was, how many questions did Chris get right, and has he closed the gap on me?
Yeah, about that. I have not.
Yeah, fortunately, Wes, he is not cut down your lead at all, so you still lead by 2 total points, 13.5 to 11.5 right now.
Okay, all right. I was hoping to at least, like, if you just told me he cut it in half, I just, I'd be happy with that. So him gaining nothing, I'm thrilled. I just didn't want to come back and be like, well, you're not in the lead anymore.
Well, and on Monday, because Chris was out covering some recruiting stuff, which we'll get to a little bit later on in the hour, Jay stepped in for the first segment, 11 o'clock hour, and he was posed the question of the day on Monday. He didn't get that right either. So he would have had the opportunity to award Chris a point if he got it right, but he did not. So your lead is safe for now.
I will award Wes no points, actually, if you can get this, Wes. But Tyler broke out. He broke out the 47, so that would have been 2 days ago. He broke out a 47 question on me that I am still kicking myself for not getting. What was it, Tyler? It was who wore number 47 from 2013 until 2016.
2016. Yep.
And I was
somebody that started a good majority of the games during that time.
Aghast that I didn't get it, but I didn't.
Starting in 2013?
Yes.
Yeah, he was on the team. So he was a Spurrier recruit, spilled over into the last year or the first year of Will Muschamp in 2016. Or 47, and I didn't get it. I was devastated. I was very disappointed in myself, Tyler, you leave me disappointed in myself most days with the questions that you craft here.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your self-esteem, Chris.
Well, so before that was DeMarco, right? It would have been the era.
Yeah.
He was 47.
That's right.
I feel like that would have been too easy of a question.
It would have been. I'm drawing a massive blank too, so don't feel too bad.
It was. So I'll go ahead and say it. We want to belay it. It was Drew Williams, the long snapper. See, that's the same reaction I had, except more.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed.
I had a mind block. All I could think about was Dalton Wilson a fullback 46?
Yeah. That one popped in my head. Because we went over that one day. For some, it was earlier, but we kept talking about Dalton Wilson.
Yeah, because we talked about fullbacks.
Fullback.
Tyler, let's just get the punishment over with.
All right. What we got, Tyler?
Yeah, you guys want to rip the Band-Aid off?
Yeah.
All right. So this is going to test your Spurrier knowledge and a little bit of math. You ready, guys? Ready for this?
God.
I'm bad at the math part and probably the Spurrier part.
We are 45 days away from kickoff. In what season did Steve Spurrier notch his 45th win as the Gamecocks head coach? Now, you have to think back to records, and you can do the math and figure this out.
No Googling.
No Googling. Who can compile the records of Spurrier years fastest in their mind? We'll get this question.
So we got to come up with the year, too. You said 45th win, obviously.
You just tell me the year. The bonus point will be if you can tell me the game.
Oh, no. 45th. Somebody's got to speak so we don't have so much dead air.
Explain the process you're thinking right now as you're trying to come up with this.
Well, I'm trying to go through the seasons in my head and like how many wins are possible, and then multiply and add and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to just think of an average number of wins and then sort of multiply it out. But I spent some time with my nieces, and I realized they're way better at their multiplication tables than I am at this age.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of
we don't do it very often.
Yeah.
Is that new?
All right, I'm gonna say year 6, which
that'd be
would
2010.
Been, huh?
That'd be 2010, right? Now we're counting on our fingers. Yeah. All right, let me go. I mean, that's kind of what I was going for.
So I'm going to say 2010. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that really would have been my guess, but since Wes did do it first, I'll go 2009 just for the heck of it, but I kind of think it's 2010.
Incorrect. It was actually 2011. Can you take a guess at what game in 2011 this was? Successful season, a lot of wins in there.
Yeah. The first of the 11-win seasons, a 33-6 run. Who could forget that? Yep. Not even me.
Well, apparently I can forget those games from 2011. I'm going to say Chris, jump in anytime now.
Just throw a game out there.
Did they beat Georgia in 2011? They did in 2012.
They did. That was week 2. I believe it was 17-9, but that is not the answer.
Let me go with the Vanderbilt game. That was the first team that popped in my head from 2011. They did win that year against Vandy.
Wes, you got an answer or a guess?
No, I would say Kentucky.
Correct answer is ECU. Game number 1 of that season, South Carolina wins 56-37. Forced
wild
3
game.
fumbles, as well as got an interception and an Ace Sanders punt return touchdown the second half of that game to pull away from the Pirates, the 45th win for Steve Spurrier.
Okay.
What a defensive showcase, by the way.
I should have gone over instead of under, when you're thinking about, because remember, Spurrier started compiling his wins more from 2010, the SEC East championship year, and then obviously the next 3 years. So instead of going under Wes's 2010, I should have taken the over there, gone 2011. Lesson learned. No points for me again.
That started a string of going 33-6 over the next 3 seasons, starting with that ECU game in game number 1, which, again, incredible run.
I'm just going to sit in silence. There was a time when I could literally sit here and give you the records from the Holtz era through the entire Spurrier era and just rattle them off to you. Those days are over.
I know.
But
the longer we go, the worse it gets.
So 7-5 in 05, 8-5 in 06, 6-6 in 07, 7-6 back-to-back in 08 and 09, and then 9-5 in 2010 before having those 3 straight 11-win seasons. And I don't know where you guys were when this game was taking place, but I imagine pretty uncomfortable at halftime, down 10 to the Pirates before, again, that defensive flurry in the second half help South Carolina pull away there.
Yeah, that game was at Willie B.
Yep, that was at Willie B. I think it was in Charlotte, actually.
It was in Charlotte. That was the game where
was
Garcia came off the bench. Connor Shaw had started, came off the bench, scored 3 touchdowns. And ended up kind of a wild game. Yeah, they had to rally, as you said, Tyler. So
Carolina had some weird games against ECU over the years.
Shane Beamer's game first year. Yeah.
Shane Beamer's second game of the Beamer era, right? First road game.
Yep.
Had to come from behind late. Had a Juju McDowell late kickoff return that was big. Parker White field goal. There's been some interesting quarterback situations going into ECU games because you had that. Then you had another one where Dylan Thompson, I think, started against ECU at Willie B. When Connor was the quarterback, and this was before we realized Dylan, like that was kind of, if I remember correctly, that was kind of Dylan's coming out party the year that he stepped in several games before he became the starter next year. And I think he threw all over ECU that day. You remember that one, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of wild ones, man. Yeah, a lot of, because those games would be early in the year, so things are kind of unsettled sometimes for South Carolina. So a lot of very weird ECU games for sure.
Well, that was obviously a game where a defense took over to help them win that one. And I want to circle back to some of the things that Coach Beamer talked about on Monday, particularly when it comes to the defense coming up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along. Again, I'm live at Digital Drive here at SEC Media Days for day number 4, the final day of this week out here in Atlanta. We're going up until noon here on the game. I'll tell you that much. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you here. Again, I'm out here at Digital Drive for SEC Media Days. And once again, want to thank so many of our great partners that are allowing us to be out here this week, including Game Day Men's Health. Game Day Men's Health Columbia offers convenient expert-backed care for all men looking to feel and perform their best. Call 803-919-7886 to book an appointment today. Before we get into a little bit of what Shane Beamer had to say about Clayton White and focusing on the defense here in just a second, Wes, since it's your first show of the week, any thoughts on what you've seen so far this week or heard from Coach Beamer and company on Monday out at Media Days?
Yeah, I thought for the most part, guys, it was pretty standard media day fare. In my experience, you get the most information from the little local media gaggle that the coaches do. And so I'll be honest, I have not listened to everything that was said for media day. A lot of it typically is a lot of things being repeated, but I did go back and listen to what Beamer said to local media. I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but I thought it was a little bit interesting that he said once again, hey, could be a decision soon on Russell Faison, and appeared to be some confidence there. Appeared to be a positive vibe from Beamer. Very, very different vibe than a couple months ago when he seemed very upset about the timing of everything. Not that you're going to count any chickens before they hatch in terms of the NCAA, but I thought that was noteworthy. Otherwise, man, it was a lot of questions, in my opinion, that we've all already heard Beamer address in the spring. The whole, well, hey, how do you address your team being the hunted and not the underdog now? Who is Lenora Sellers now that he's famous? Like, I mean, what I know y'all talked about earlier this week. Did y'all not think it was like a lot of just the same stuff we've already talked to Beamer about?
It was. And I think that's what you get, during media days. I think we got to remember, like, we're all in our bubble, so a lot of the stuff, I mean, Wes, not to diminish what we do, but when we sit down with Shane Beamer in January, February, when we go through spring ball, like we get a lot of media opportunities. We create some media opportunities. We hear things, we report things. SEC media days is a lot more for like the national media. It's more like casual, like, let me see what's going on with all these teams. And so a lot of it is going to be, if you listen to a lot of the questions, it's from reporters who are from out of town covering another school, and they want to get the South Carolina perspective, or it's the national media who, has some different ideas about some themes that they want to explore with this team. And a lot of it ends up being stuff that we have heard, which is fine. You every now and then we'll get some other nuggets, but the stuff about Sellers and how he's handling things, those are things, frankly, that have been discussed a lot. I do think we finally graduated. I could be mistaken because I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't think Shane Beamer got a question about what he's learned coaching under his dad, or what he learned from Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech. I don't think he got that one this year for the first time in forever. So I think we finally moved past that. Maybe.
Are we still getting the, hey, what have you learned in year one? What did you learn in year two? I feel like that's been a go-to for some time. Like, all right, we're in year 5 now. And what did you learn about yourself now that you're a head coach?
Yeah, I don't recall any of those questions being asked. It's funny you mentioned the thing about him kind of finally escaping the shadow of his dad a little bit. Well, then you're playing Virginia Tech in week number 1, where I'm sure all those same questions are going to crop up as we get closer to that game. Like, hey, what'd you learn from your dad when you were a player or an assistant, or all those kind of things? So yeah, I'm sure those things are coming in the next couple of weeks.
I'll be honest, guys. I'm actually, and again, I haven't listened to everything. I'm surprised that didn't hit this week already. I'm surprised he didn't get a ton of those. Like, I don't know. Maybe people haven't quite gotten tuned into the various schedules, like who's opening with who, because that would seem like a outside reporter dream question. Oh, let me ask Shane Beamer about playing the school his dad coached at, and he was an assistant at, and he, people forget Shane played there too. Like, I think that's definitely going to be driven into the ground going into that. I mean, I don't know. Sorry to go back to the All-Star game real quick, but I don't know if it's going to be driven into the ground as much as the Freddie Freeman Atlanta angle that we've done 4 times now. That was a pet peeve of mine, guys. Watching the, are we really giving Freddie a? Go ahead, Tyler.
No. Finish your thought. I had someone to add to that when you're done.
I love Freddie Freeman, love him, but why are we giving Freddie the interview to start the game, and why are we giving him a mid-inning exit when Ronald Acuna plays for the Atlanta Braves right now? Like, are we serious right now? Ronald Acuna is on the team. He's standing in right field. So not only did they play somebody else in right field for longer, which I get it. Ronnie's had, he's coming off of injuries. He had the back thing. Maybe that plays in. But you can't give him a mid-inning exit.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was listening to a little bit of Atlanta radio driving home yesterday, Dukes and Bell, and they were talking about that as well. Like, yeah, sure. When Freddie came back that first time, the Dodgers were in town, and he rightfully got the ovation, and did the hat tip and all that kind of stuff. Makes total sense. But in the times he's come back, they seem to try and do that every single time. It's like, all right, okay, I think we've kind of worn this out a little bit. And the All-Star game was just kind of re-racking that once again. It's like, we get it. He played here. We love Freddie. That's great, but let's move on. And we don't have to give him a parade every time he makes an appearance at Truist Park anymore.
Yeah. And Dave Roberts is just giving, like, the Clayton Kershaw moment was cool. The in-game interview was sweet, but
sure.
I mean, can we give somebody else some moments? Like, this is not the Dodgers Invitational at Truist Park. Like, I don't know. Anyway, all right, back to media days. I just had to get that out.
Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to hit a little bit of what Shane Bieber did have to say, something we didn't get to a little bit earlier on in the week. Cut number 13 from day one here. This is him talking about Clayton White in this defense this fall.
Defensively, it's year 5 with Clayton White as our defensive coordinator. He's done a remarkable job in the 4 seasons leading our defense. It's great to have him back and our entire defensive staff back around him as well. We've got to continue to be opportunistic as a defense. We've led the SEC in takeaways since 2021, and we've got to continue to be that group. We played great defense last season, but we've lost a lot of production, particularly right up the middle of our defense at defensive tackle, linebacker, and safety. But the group that we return is very athletic and really excited about the potential of the next group of guys to make their impact on our defense.
We can dive into the specifics of this just coming up a little bit more on the other side to expand on some thoughts here. But crazy to think that, again, it's year number 5 for Clayton White under Shane Beamer, and he's been the one constant on this coaching staff as far as the direct assistants and coordinators go, that he's been here the entire time.
Yeah, and guys, not only is Clayton White back, but as Beamer said, all the other assistants on the defensive side are back as well. So you do have continuity on that side, even if you don't have continuity in terms of the roster on that side of the ball. So I do think that helps. I think it'll be a very, I don't want to say very different approach from Clayton this year, but I think this time last year, guys, we were talking about how with so many veterans, even if they weren't from South Carolina, some of them were transfers. With so many veterans, they were able to install a little bit more on defense. Remember that talk about, they ended up kind of majoring in the 4-man front stuff, 4-man D-line, but we're going to be able to go back and forth between the 4-man D-line and the 3-man. And, we can do all these different twists and stunts and different looks because of the veteran nature of this group. Probably, I imagine, going to have to dial that back a little bit this year. Going to have to take a little bit different approach, maybe a little bit more blitzing, I feel like, in terms of getting that extra rusher involved, because you're not going to have a Kyle Kennard opposite of Dylan Stewart, and you still want to create those one-on-one situations. But the one constant with everything else changing around him has been Clayton White. And I think you got to go back to one of the best decisions Shane Beamer has made since he arrived at South Carolina, was not listening to the noise after the 2023 season, doubling down on his decision to hire Clayton White, giving him another year when a lot of fans were ticked off about how the defense was going, and it has paid off in a huge way for South Carolina. Obviously last year, and I think that will carry over into this year, even though you're going to have, like I said, a lot of new bodies on the field for you.
And I got off of that, Wes, off of your point. I know we're up against the break, Tyler, but I have a thought on something that's really gotten lost in all this about Clayton White and the defense. The eye is always on personnel, but just some other things schematically that South Carolina has changed and may change this year too. I think that's worth unpacking a little bit on the other side as well.
We'll hit that up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along here on your Thursday from SEC Media Days on the Game. And welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head live at SEC Media Days on Digital Drive. And again, thank you to our great partners allowing us to be out here this week, including Lexington Discount Homes. Lexington Discount Homes, one of South Carolina's leading retailers of manufacturers' homes. Go to LexingtonDiscountHomes.com to find out more. Been talking about Clayton White and the South Carolina defense. You heard Beamer's comments about him the other day when he was speaking on Monday. Again, year 5, all the assistants retained, and obviously a lot of hope that they can replicate the success they had a year ago. As Wes pointed out a moment ago, was just 2 seasons ago that we thought Clayton White wouldn't be around anymore because of how poorly the defense was playing in the middle of that season, not generating turnovers as the team was on their way to missing a bowl game. But last year was obviously a step in the right direction, one of the best defenses we've had in recent years, and sent 5 of those guys to be drafted in the NFL. And Chris, you had mentioned there was a point that you wanted to make before we ran into the break there about Clayton White.
Yeah, I think it's just to go off what Wes said, and you just mentioned it too, Tyler. After that 2023 season, it obviously wasn't what you wanted. Now, South Carolina got better defensively in the back half of the season with some adjustments that the staff made. We'll all remember, it seems like a long time ago, but they started playing more the 3-3-5, had some personnel tweaks in there, Jaron Willis being one of those who's probably going to play a bigger role here now that he's been in the program a while in 2025. But, there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of outside noise for Shane Beamer to not just make that change, guys, but really blow up the entire staff, right? And Wes, I'll never forget when we sat down with Beamer, January, February after that season, and he had made some tweaks. He took a hard look, as you should, after every season, especially one like that, at the program. And in some cases, he thought, hey, we need to shake this up for the first time in his career, first time in his tenure as a head coach. He dismissed a coach. He shifted some responsibilities around. But in some cases, he thought, hey, we need to make some tweaks, but keep certain staffers in place. He leaned on continuity being the answer to fix it as opposed to blowing it up. And that did pay off. And look, yeah, no doubt a lot of what South Carolina did last year was because of the guys that they had. But I think keeping Clayton White around in many cases, that helped you not lose as many guys to the portal, because then there's not that uncertainty of bringing in a new coach. I don't know this new coach. How do I fit in this scheme? I could go to this other school and I know more of what I'm getting, right? So that helps you. They obviously did a great job of retention. They did a great job of plugging in some new faces like a Kyle Kennard. But I think what really gets lost is South Carolina also made some schematic tweaks last year. And it wasn't just playing more 4-man front to match your personnel. They did some things with how they played up front schematically. And this came up on some of the broadcasts. I think Clayton White called it his summer studies. Before the season, he went in, talked to some NFL teams, decided to play some things differently up front schematically. You may not even really notice it if you're just there watching the game, but that really helped them. And the reason I bring it up now too is going into 25, you just mentioned it, Wes, in the last segment there, you're going to have to be a little bit different schematically than you were even last year. And the staff has already said a little bit, hey, we're already looking at some things. We put in some new things for this year. So I'll be curious of what are those things, schematically. It may not be, we're going to play more 3-man. It may not be things that are super noticeable just to the casual fan watching, but schematically, they've done a good job in the last, year and a half of trying to adjust more to their personnel. And they're going to have that same challenge this year. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with there, what they've put in so far.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what that looks like. And, I think when you look at some of the possibilities there, a lot of that is going to be based around, let's do everything we can to try to free up Dylan Stewart. Like, you've got this special talent. You've got to turn him loose. You've got to use him. But a big part of that is trying to find ways to keep double teams off of him. That may mean actually being more aggressive up front. And, you've got some big, fast, physical linebackers that maybe when you look at a J.R. Johnson, it's not a guy that has played a ton, but physically, he is impressive. He is long. You've got a guy like Jaron Willis in there who does have pass rush juice. Can you bring him off the edge at times to maybe free up? The thing about bringing 5 guys, bring 6 guys, is it does create a lot of sort of single team blocks. And so I think you maybe look at that a little bit more. Certainly, they're going to be looking at it much deeper than we can just talking about it here on the radio, certainly. But, I'm excited to see what that looks like. And, yeah, to Chris's point, I mean, if Clayton White is not retained, are those 3 defensive tackles that we're talking about them having to replace this year, are those guys even on the roster last year? Is Nick Emmanwori even on the roster last year? If you look back, Nick under the table, highly focused on by other schools. OD Fortune was, at one point going to be looked at by other schools like
Tonka.
Tonka Hemingway was all but gone, according to some people. So, it's one of those things where it's easy to say blow it up, but it's not always the right answer. And so Carolina, and it's not like all those guys were 4- and 5-star recruits either. There has been some very strong evaluations and strong development for South Carolina on the defensive side. Chris, you remember when I put together that kind of breakdown of the defense about where all the guys came from in terms of who was a JUCO, who was a transfer, who was a highly recruited high school guy, and who was an under-the-radar high school guy? There were very few that were like your true blue-chip high school recruits on that defense.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Stewart is your obvious answer for. I mean, look, if you could sign 11 Dylan Stewarts across the, not literally, but a corner that's a 5-star, that's the number 1 corner in the country, safety, defensive tackle, linebacker, sure, you would take that, right? But every top program you're going to look at, they're going to have a guy, even your Georgias, your Ohio States, where it's a transfer. It's a guy who developed, who was a 3-star. Those programs are typically going to be more loaded up with talent. Those top, they're going to have a higher blue chip rate. They're going to have more 5-stars. But you can build. I mean, South Carolina proved last year you can build a formidable defense by just finding guys and developing them. And I mean, heck, look at their linebacker core, right? I mean, Debo Williams he's a guy who could literally lay claim to I was a 0-star. People love to say that, but he transferred in from Delaware, early and developed. Demetrius Knight, 3-star guy, big time athleticism, but developed the most in his last year. Bam Martin Scott was a JUCO guy. Kyle Kennard was a 3-star recruit who just developed over the course of his career. I mean, there are tons of those guys in there. And so you can do it that way, but the retention, we all talk about the retention, which was obviously outstanding, but I think it gets lost in it that staff continuity actually helped South Carolina keep a lot of those guys. So it was clearly the right move. I mean, we tend to focus on the things that need to change or the recruits that you lose instead of the guys that you get, the guys that you keep. The things that you did right. That's just kind of, human nature. But Beamer clearly pressed the right button there. And he pressed some other buttons. That was a continuity button that he pushed, and it ended up working out for him in a big way.
Speaking of recruiting, finally got some positive recruiting news yesterday. To wrap up the hour coming next year.
Hey, Tyler, everybody was echoing on my end. It wasn't just Chris.
Yeah, same for me. I've been hearing echo the whole show.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour by Firehouse Club, Starwest Takeover Hour by Firehouse Club, Starwest Chris. Along with you for a few more minutes here as we wrap up today's show. Wes, Chris and I have been talking about this a lot this week, but not the best recruiting momentum when we go back to last week in South Carolina, missing on a couple of key guys that were certainly going after. But some good news yesterday as Kamari Blair does commit to South Carolina, picking them over Ole Miss and in Tennessee to add the 2026 offensive line class.
Yeah, big get for South Carolina, obviously, 4-star guy at a position, not necessarily a position of need for South Carolina, but a position that is always going to be highly valued. I think when you can add particularly these offensive tackle types, he's not quite as highly ranked as like a Josiah Thompson was, but if you go back when they first initially started recruiting Kamari Blair and got him on campus the first time, part of the message was, look, you have elite athleticism, you're a bit raw, but you have the ability to develop into a future starter in the SEC. And they really pointed to the path that Josiah took coming in, putting on that good weight pretty quickly, and then getting himself in a position to play. So this is a true high upside offensive tackle, a guy that I would say burst on the recruiting radar a little bit later than maybe some of the other highly valued guys at that position. But once he did, you saw his recruitment really take off. And this is a guy, honestly, from the moment they offered him, South Carolina very quietly had Kamari Blair as a huge priority for them. And just another class of 2026 recruitment where it completely came down to the wire. And, I don't know if this is the new normal. I don't know if there's if it's NIL and all this stuff and rev share, but this has been one of the crazier summers I have ever seen in terms of the guys we are tracking, the guys we are covering, coming down to the wire to the point that, you don't want to go too strongly with anything you say until there's an announcement, because we have seen these recruitments come down literally to the final minutes before a guy's announcement. That was the case with this one, but in this case, South Carolina comes out on top with Kamari Blair over Tennessee and Ole Miss.
Yeah, and I think we've seen it's gone the other direction. Like PJ Dean, you wake up on announcement day and feel like it's South Carolina, and not just feel like you go back and kind of track the information there. It was South Carolina, and then it changes, right? So I think it's a few things, Wes. I think some of this is maybe a new era, a different era. It's a little different than it was in 2005, 2010. I think Kamari, you look at Kamari Blair, he said publicly, I forced myself to kind of set a decision date because I'm having a hard time making a decision. So what does that tell you? Well, he's probably going to go back and forth, and he certainly was. I think all three of those schools from the SEC that were on his list at one time or another took a turn at the top. I think he went back and forth between all of them, and I think that continued up until the end of his decision. And South Carolina was able to get it done to their credit and score, a really important recruiting win. I think some of it too, Wes, is if you look at the trajectory of Shane Beamer's recruiting since he's been here, Carolina's got locked into more, big time recruiting battles. When you do that, some of them aren't going to go your way. You obviously want more of them than not to go your way, but you're not going to bat 1,000 on all these big time type guys that have big time SEC offers. And I do think, you mentioned NIL, that's certainly playing into it as well, because frankly, and I'm not speaking about Blair here, just as a general point, frankly, you've got some negotiations that go back and forth into the last hours. But this was, I think, a much needed recruiting win. This is a guy, man, that's big. He can move, and I think he's got a lot of potential when you look at his trajectory once he gets to South Carolina.
And real quick, as you wrap up the hour here, also later on today, about 2 o'clock, Samarian Wingo, a 4-star wide receiver out of Florida, has moved up his commitment date. And again, hopefully that's something that can go South Carolina's way as well.
Yeah, the buzz there down the stretch has been Miami. That said, yet another one that's going to go down to the wire. So, as we sit here right now, 11:54 a.m., I would still think the Hurricanes. That said, we're going to be tracking that one from what we're hearing. Still want to at least keep an eye on in terms of South Carolina. And, there was some thought, hey, South Carolina might be the pick earlier in the week. We weren't quite sure to buy all that talk. But the Gamecocks are certainly, I would say, in it enough to at least watch the announcement at 2:00.
We'll see what happens and react to that coming up tomorrow. We'll be reunited back in these studios to wrap up the week. We've been broadcasting live here at SC Media Days from Digital Drive, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.